try to do a brief overview of the short sale process. And this is very general. It's different for every bank. It's different for every type of loan. But you're gonna submit the application. There's an application we have to put together with the homeowner's financials. It's typically 30 days of income, 2 months bank statements, 2 years tax returns, some sort of a financial form, either a request for mortgage assistance, also referred to as an RMA, or a UBA, which is a Uniform Borrower's Assistance Form, or the bank may have their own form that you have to use. The RMA and the UBA are more standardized forms. So you have to put the application together, show the financial hardship, and submit it to the bank. You might be able to apply without an offer. You might need an offer to apply. Depends on the type of loan. FHA loans that are not already referred to an attorney to start foreclosure can be pre-approved to do a short sale. These days, that's really the only type of loan that can be pre-approved for a short sale. With a Fannie Mae loan, you can get a confusing pre-approval. They will allow
conditional approval.
Yeah, they will allow you to ask for their opinion of value. You can go directly to Fannie Mae on their HomePath website. Ask them to order a value on the property for a short sale. They'll order an appraisal and a broker's price opinion, unless it's with Chase, and then they'll order 2 appraisals. That'll go to Fannie Mae, and they will use that information and a valuation model and a desktop value and a forecasting model to spit out their opinion of value, which may or may not be anywhere near what real market value is. And then they'll say, here's the value that you should market the property at. And some people, agents will be confused and they'll think that that's like, it's pre-approved at this price. That's not. They haven't even reviewed the homeowner to determine if they qualify yet. They're just giving you their quote unquote opinion of value. So if you see pre-approved on the MLS as a buyer's agent, that should be a trigger to ask more questions. You say this is pre-approved. How is it pre-approved? Is this an FHA loan? Does the homeowner have an approval to participate? That's the pre-approval document you get on an FHA loan. If they don't have that and it's something else, there's no guarantee that even if you have an offer at that price that it'll be approved. We have seen servicers, like they want to be proactive and get you involved and get the financials in place and maybe even the financials reviewed without having an offer, so that once you get an offer, it takes less time for them to make a decision. So they have a good goal there. The problem is that depending on how they do their value, they may kind of overstep their bounds when it comes to the investor's guidelines. So you'll go and you'll submit the full application for the homeowner, you don't have an offer yet. They'll go, they'll do a value, and they'll come back and they'll say, oh, okay, well, we want you to list it now at this price. So change your listing to this price if it's not at this price. And then it'll be a month later and they're like, hey, we're not getting any offers at that price. We need to lower the price. Can we lower the price? Number one, you don't want to be in a position where you're asking a bank what to do with your listing. But if you're in that position, that's where you are. So then they're like, okay, well, we're going to authorize you to reduce the price to this number. It'll be some stupid number, you know, $174,325.50. So you're like, okay, well, they authorized us to reduce the price. You reduce the price, you get an offer at that price. You submit it to them, the investor comes back and denies it. You told me to list it at that price. They didn't have authorization from the investor to accept a lower price. They were helping you to market the property to try to get an offer so that they had something to submit to the investor to see if they could get approval. So you may have been marketing that as a pre-approved price because that's what you thought it was. So there's the banks do a very, very bad job of explaining their guidelines and their rules and their process to anyone. If you don't know it, they're not going to explain it to you. And if somebody is explaining it to you on their end, you have maybe a 50% chance that they're telling you the right thing.
You're doing it wrong.
And if the homeowner's being told stuff, it's even worse. Because the homeowner is typically not allowed to talk to the same type of person that we, as a third party, get to. You typically get to the processor or the negotiator that's assigned to the file, or at least into the department that's reviewing the file. The homeowner gets a relationship manager, or a single point of contact, which is a glorified customer service person who has not any training whatsoever, and they heard something on one other file somewhere and they think it applies to every loan. Because I get homeowners all the time, they're like, well, my bank told me this. And I'm like, well, that's a correct guideline, but not for the type of mortgage that you have. That's a guideline for Fannie Mae. You have an FHA loan. That doesn't apply at all. So we see that type of thing all the time. So don't ever expect to be able to like, oh, well, the bank will walk me through this. Number one, the bank's not looking after your client, they're looking after themselves. And they're not even doing a very good job of that most of the time. The people that they have are, they're really low end, like probably less than $15 an hour, positions, minimum wage in the state that they're in a lot of the times. They don't own a home, they have no skin in the game, they get very poor training. And depending on what type of loan they're servicing, the rules and the guidelines can be very, very difficult, and they can be different from one type of loan to another. When you talk to a processor or a negotiator, they're typically assigned to one particular type of loan over and over again. So like you'll have one that does Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loans because their guidelines are really, really similar. You'll have a different person who does FHA, but they don't do Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. The homeowners relationship managers aren't set up that way. They deal with every homeowner with all these different types of loans, and they don't know these guidelines. So they'll have a homeowner that either has a question and they get an answer to that question for that homeowner and they think it applies to everybody, or the underwriter was working on the file, asked for something or said something for one particular homeowner, and again, they think it applies to everybody, and now they're giving that information out to other homeowners and they're giving them the wrong information.
So then go back to if they are told, if it's a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and they are told list at this price, you're going to try to not have that done, correct?
Ask more questions. So when we're working on a file, unless it's an FHA loan and it's not already in foreclosure, we don't get the bank involved at all until you have an offer, because it's strategically not in your best interest or your homeowner's best interest. Your chance of successfully closing that short sale is much lower if you get involved with the mortgage company before you have a sales contract, for a few different reasons. Number one, much higher chance of your homeowner getting burnt out on paperwork. They're going to ask them for a full financial package when you first get involved with them, and then it takes you 3 months to get an offer while they're jerking around giving you different list prices, and then you finally get an offer and they're like, well, all that financial stuff is outdated, you got to do it all over again. Or during that full 3 months, oh, we need your new bank statement, we need your new pay stub, oh, your financial form expired.
And most homeowners have already done a loan mod with the bank, so they've already submitted a crap ton of paperwork, and they're like, you want me to submit more and more and more, and they get burnt out. And we have had homeowners will get the emails, I'm done, I'm not submitting anymore, I don't care anymore, I can't do this anymore, it's just too much for me. So we try very hard.
That's one reason.
Yeah, that's one reason. We try very hard to make sure that homeowners don't get burnt out, because when they do, it's a lose-lose for everyone.
Yeah. The other big reason is the way the bank does their value, in how much they treat that value as like gold. So they'll order a broker's price opinion, which is done by a real estate agent, for like what do they pay for BPOs these days? 45 bucks or something? 50 bucks?
50 bucks.
50 bucks. So they send them out there. They're not involved with the transaction at all. They give them $50 to give them an opinion of value, which is not legal in Connecticut, but nobody enforces it, so let's not go there. On that note, Chase always orders appraisals because they recognize that they're not supposed to pay for BPOs.
I think Shell Point. We pushed Shell Point one time, and we got them to change their policies as well.
So they're going to order a lot of times a BPO, or they're going to order an appraisal from an appraiser who's not local to your market, has no skin in the game again, which they're not supposed to, obviously, as an appraiser. But they're going to order this value, and when they get it, they're going to treat it as gold. So if you've not been listed, you've got no marketing history, got no showing feedback, you've got nothing to suggest what the market is currently telling you they're willing to pay for that property. So you don't have any extra data that you can supply to the person who comes out to do the value, which they may or may not use anyway, but you don't have it. You don't have an offer on the table, you don't have anything. So they're coming out basically cold and blind to do a market analysis on your property. And if you don't even meet them there and they spend literally 5 minutes taking photos, and they're not even the person who does the value, somebody sitting behind a computer does it, the chances of them coming in with a realistic number are not very good. And on the short sale side of things, it's much more likely that they come back with an inflated number than a number that's below market value. It's completely opposite of what you see on the origination side of things, where you're hoping that it appraises because you got a really high offer on this pristine property, and then the appraiser comes in with a low appraisal. It's not very common that the bank's opinion of value comes in significantly lower than the list price or an offer that you have. If you have neither of those, who knows where it's going to come in at. And whatever it comes in at, the bank's going to tell you if they're, now not all banks will do this, but if the bank will allow you to apply without having an offer and they get involved with your marketing, they're going to want you to market it at that appraised value, and your homeowner's going to be like, well, the bank's telling us we have to do that. And I have to follow the bank's rules, or they're going to foreclose on me, which isn't necessarily true, but they treat it like they're the big bad wolf, and you have to follow everything that they say. So you can just sit there at a price that you're never going to get an offer at. You're not getting that homeowner any closer to a solution, versus you didn't do any of that garbage with the bank. You didn't let the bank dictate what you were doing to market this property and get the highest and best offer you can get. You just marketed it to get the highest and best offer that you can get, whatever price that is. Then we submit everything to the bank. The homeowner filled out the application one time. Hopefully we did a really good job and we got everything that was needed for them given their particular financial circumstances. We got a full package to the bank so they didn't have to update anything. Then the bank ordered the value, and when that person came out, they could see your long listing history, how many times you had to reduce the price. You were there to meet them and point out anything that was wrong with the property or what you were getting for feedback or what's wrong with the neighborhood or whatever that justifies that, hey, this is why this is the best offer we're going to be able to get on this property. And you can see we've been trying to get an offer for 3 months or 4 months or whatever it is. So you've got all this extra information, this extra data to back up your offer, and hopefully their opinion of value comes in accurate. If it doesn't, we have all that same data to dispute their value, which is another process we can do with the mortgage company. Disputing their value when you've not even tried to get their price, forget it. Then they're not going to agree with you. So there's the financial burnout, but then there's the very dysfunctional and not very good method in which the banks determine what they think the current market value is. That puts you in a strategic disadvantage if you get involved with the mortgage company before you have an offer. The exception to that is FHA. On FHA loans, we could go 3 hours on FHA loans. So
we could go more on FHA loans.
They're so complicated, and there's exceptions to every rule and exceptions to exceptions to exceptions. It's freaking ridiculous. But on an FHA loan, there's some key pieces of information that we need to be aware of. So the homeowner can be pre-approved into their short sale program if they apply prior to first legal action, which is when the bank sends the file to an attorney to start going to foreclosure. If they apply before that, foreclosure activity goes on hold, and they'll be reviewed first for home retention options. We're going to get through this in a little bit too. First through home retention options. They have to be determined that they don't qualify for any home retention options like a loan mod first, before they're allowed to review them for a short sale. That used to only be FHA rules. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau regulations that started last October make it that every loan has to do that now. So any kind of loan, doesn't matter who the bank is, they first have to review the homeowner for a loan mod before they're allowed to review them for a short sale. So you send them an offer and you send them an application, they review for a loan mod first. For most other types of loans, it takes less than 30 days in most cases. And all they have to do is determine whether they can approve a loan mod, inform the homeowner of that decision. If the decision is yes, hear back from the homeowner either verbally or in writing that that's not what they want, that they want to do a short sale, and then they'll move forward with the short sale review. And typically the financial part of the review carries over to the short sale, so it's not like you're really starting from scratch in the short sale review. Part of the work's already been done, but it does add to the timeline.
That's only regular, that's not FHA.
That's only conventional.
He deterred.
I went back and forth.
Sorry.
On FHA loans, they always require that they have to be reviewed for home retention options, and there's more home retention options that they could be approved for than any other type of loan. And they can be approved for a home retention option that's supposed to make the payment affordable, that doesn't make the payment affordable. But it meets the guidelines and they can approve it. And it'll be like 50% of their take-home pay. That's not affordable. But it meets the guidelines, so they can say yes to it. Anyway, so they first have to review them for that, and then they'll move forward into liquidation review. Once they get through retention review, getting through retention review for some people is the hardest part. Getting them into short sale review is hard. Once they're in short sale review, the guidelines are relatively simple. If they still live in the property, as long as they have more expenses per month than income, they qualify for a short sale. Basically that simple, but you have to get there. Getting through retention is harder. Once they get in there, if they can be approved for a short sale, they'll be given their pre-approval. It's called an approval to participate. It's a one-page document, although some banks add a bunch of other pages, but the HUD form is one page. And it says, you're approved into the short sale program. Here's what our appraisal came in at. You now need to list it at this appraised value for at least 15 days from today. Doesn't matter if you've been listed for 6 months. It needs to be on the market for at least 15 days at our appraised value after the date that the approval to participate was issued, even if you already have an offer, even if that offer is already higher. I don't agree with it.
We watched on some of our FHA files when they changed this guideline and they were reinforcing this.
I just talked to somebody today that HUD's going to lose $20,000.
We watched just on our files alone within well, I'd say a month, at least $50,000 HUD was losing.
HUD used to approve an exception to that rule, and then they stopped.
I was just appalled, and they don't care. They just don't care. So it's sad.
You get the pre-approval, and now the homeowner's in an approved 4-month marketing period. They have 4 months to market the property to get an offer. They're not moving forward with collection. They're not moving forward with foreclosure. They are pre-approved into this program. For the first 30 days of that marketing, the bank needs to net at least 88% of what the appraisal came in at. Net meaning after all the seller's closing costs are paid. So the commission, the conveyance taxes, the closing attorney's fees, water and sewer fees, if there's a closing cost credit to the buyer, any of that stuff. After all that's paid, the number that's left has to be at least 88% of what the bank's appraisal came in at. That's for the first 30 days. Between 30 and 60 days, it goes down 2% to 86% during that 4-month marketing period. And then after 60 days, it goes down to 84%. That's as low as it goes. If by the end of the 120-day period they've not been able to get an offer, which would typically be because the appraisal came in super inflated, and even with all that reduction in the minimum they could accept, you still couldn't get an offer that met the number. At the end of the 120-day period, they can move forward and do a deed in lieu of foreclosure. They're already really qualified for it by having done everything else.
Before you go too far, with that whole reduction with an FHA loan, it doesn't necessarily mean that the price can be reduced. There are
depends on the servicer.
It depends on the servicer. There are certain servicers who they don't care that you can get less. They still, this is the value, this is where you need to be listed at, that's where you need to be listed at. You need to keep it at that listing for the full 4 months. We do know which servicers allow and which ones don't. We will, the ones that do allow, we always double check and make sure they haven't changed their policy, because that can get the homeowner kicked out of the program. And once they're kicked out of the program, the only option for them is foreclosure. So the last thing that you want to do is be the one responsible that put that homeowner into foreclosure. So it's definitely something that we are very conscious of. If you attempt to do a short sale on your own and you're dealing with an FHA loan, you definitely want to double, triple check to make sure if you are in an approval to participate program with your homeowner, you are or not allowed to reduce that listing on the MLS, because you will get your homeowner into a very, very bad situation.
What will happen is if they don't get an offer, and then, well, if they do get an offer and you submit it and they ask you for the listing history and they see that you lowered the price and they wouldn't allow you to, they'll deny your offer and they could kick the homeowner out of the program. Now they can't do a deed in lieu. So the only thing left is foreclosure. And if they didn't get an offer and then they go forward to move a deed in lieu, they'll ask them for the listing history. They hadn't marketed and they weren't in compliance for the full 120 days, they won't qualify for the deed in lieu at that point. The problem is that the FHA guidelines in a lot of places, but particularly here, is gray as to whether you have to list it for the whole period at the appraised value. They do specifically state it has to be active for at least 15 days, but that's just in relation to it has to be active for 15 days. It doesn't say that you have to list it at the appraised value for the first 120 days. And depending on the price range, you may be in a scenario where you could lower the price $5,000 or $10,000 and still hit that bottom minimum net number. So if you're not getting any offers, you want to lower the price. Depending on the servicer, they might not let you do that. So you want to know what the scenario is. But that deed in lieu, everything they did before that was a prerequisite to being able to do that. They had to be reviewed for retention, they had to be approved into the short sale, they had to go through the 4-month marketing period. So on the FHA loans, it's the only one where we want to pre-apply if they don't have an offer and they're not already referred to foreclosure, because we want them to retain all the abilities to get out of this property and avoid foreclosure. If they don't end up being able to do a short sale because the appraisal comes in stupid number, they still have the ability to do a deed in lieu and they still have the ability to avoid foreclosure. You guys don't make any money doing a sale because there's no sale. We don't get paid for doing a short sale negotiation because there's no short sale, but the homeowner's still in the best financial position at the end of the deal. And we didn't do something that made it so that one of those options wasn't available. That's only FHA. Any other type of loan, they don't have any requirements as far as you had to be in a pre-approved marketing period or any of that kind of stuff in order to be eligible to do a deed in lieu. Most of them have a requirement that the homeowner had to try and sell the property themselves for at least 90 days. So they got to list it for 90 days, get no offers, and then ask for a deed in lieu, and that might be enough. They can go move right forward, to a deed in lieu. So there's nothing by not applying with the mortgage company without having an offer that puts them in a different position where they might not qualify for a deed in lieu later, or it doesn't change that. It's only on FHA. So on FHAs, you have to apply in order to protect the homeowner if it's less than 120 days late.